It's 9 o'clock and time for the January 18th, 2011 meeting of the Indian River Board of County Commissioners. We're going to begin today with an invocation from Reverend Tom Harris, the First Presbyterian Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which I'll lead. Thank you.
Thank you. Let us pray. Gracious God, as we gather here this morning, we're humbled by the work that lies before us, by the opportunity to aspire to greatness. But also, God, we give you thanks that you are with us and we have the ability and the task to do great things. As we go through this agenda, as we go through our own agendas this morning, help us to lay those aside and to be mindful of your agenda, of your love, of your justice, of the responsibility you have given us to be stewards of your creation. Help us this morning especially to be mindful of the life and the ministry of Reverend Martin Luther King, of his ministry of justice, of reconciliation, of equality. And help us in all we do that we might emulate and follow in his footsteps. For this we pray in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Just as a reminder, shortly before 10:30, this board is going to break for a shade meeting, which will be held upstairs. We anticipate that meeting will last about a half an hour, and then we'll return to these chambers. We'll move to item 4, additions and deletions to the agenda, emergency items. And I want to note that per the county administrator, we are going to add item M to the consent agenda. And I want to pull that because there's no backup to it, and let the county administrator explain that at that time. Also, per the county administrator, we're going to pull from the agenda today item 15A1. Under Commissioner Davis's matters, he'd emailed a request to add item 14C, a discussion regarding the Vero Beach Sports Villages. Are there any other additions or deletions from the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda as amended.
We have a motion to approve as amended from Commissioner Davis, seconded by Commissioner Fletcher. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Under proclamations and presentations, it's quite obvious to those of us in the audience here that we've got a presentation from the Humane Society today. This will be presented by Ilka Daniels, who has a special guest this morning. Good morning. Just for your name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. It's Ilka Daniel. The address is 6230.
I didn't know you were bilingual.
6230 77th Street in Vero Beach at the Humane Society. I have with me this morning, this is a little puppy. She's approximately 3 months old. We believe she's a little Hound Terrier mix. She was found as a stray on US 1 about 2 weeks ago, and no one's claimed her. Oh. So she'll be moving over to our adoption center this morning. And we've been calling her Harmony. She's a sweet pup. She's leash broken. She's very, very sociable. And we're hoping that someone will come and adopt her and give her a forever home.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Look, why don't you tell everybody where the Humane Society is, a phone number, hours, things like that.
Humane Society is located at 6230 77th Street, just off of Kings Highway. We are open 6 days a week. Our adoption hours are 11 to 6 p.m., Monday through Saturday. And we do have a website where we have all the animals available for adoption if you'd like to view them. That website is hsvb.org, and our phone number is 772-388-3331. So if anyone's interested.
Last time you were here, you had a little miniature dachshund, and it was Dusty or Rusty?
It was Rusty, and Rusty was actually adopted from someone that saw him here at this meeting.
Perfect. Well, let's hope
so Rusty has a home.
Same good news for Harmony coming up here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ilka. Y'all did a great job.
Thank you very much. Next, we have a presentation of a proclamation honoring Gerald and Sue Smith on a retirement from the Tax Collector's Office of Indian River County. And this will be presented by Commissioner Peter O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my honor to make this proclamation. Gerald, would you like to come up, and any support staff or any people you want to stand with you? This is also a kind of a special honor because we know her more as Sue, and she's a neighbor of ours, and so very Very pleased to make this proclamation. Honoring Geraldine Sue Smith on her retirement from the Tax Collector's Office of Indian River County. Whereas Geraldine Sue Smith retired from the Tax Collector's Office of Indian River County effective December 31st, 2010, and whereas she has been employed with the Tax Collector's Office of Indian River County since October 7, 2002. She began as a customer service representative and has continued in this capacity, specializing in the issuance of Florida license plates, driver's license, hunting and fishing license, local business tax receipts, the collection of property taxes, and most importantly, demonstrating excellent customer service. And whereas she has served the county, the state of Florida, and the public with distinction and selflessness. During her years of service, she was dedicated to her work and was greatly appreciated by tax collectors Carol Jean Jordan, former tax collector Charles W. Sembler, and her co-workers alike. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the Board applauds her efforts on behalf of the Tax Collector's Office, and the Board wishes to express its appreciation for the dedicated service she has given to Indian River County for the last 8 years and 2 months, and be it further proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners and staff extend heartfelt wishes for success in her future endeavors. Dated this 18th day of January, 2011, and signed by all 5 county commissioners, and congratulations. So, would you like to say a few words?
It's been a pleasure working with everyone. For me, it's been a learning and growing experience, and I thank each of you for that opportunity.
Okay. I know the times I've been in there, Sue has always been smiling. You see there what you saw when you came into the tax collector's office, almost like this young girl giggling back there while she was working, and always made everybody feel welcome when you came in there, and just did a great job. So congratulations for representing the county so well.
Thank you.
Congratulations. So you got to come on. Got to do the gauntlet. You want to get a picture? Congratulations. All right? Yeah.
Thank you for everything.
Next up, we have a proclamation designated January 18th, 2011 as Indian River County Mentoring Day. This proclamation will be presented by Commissioner Joe Fletcher.
Thank you. D? I don't see D here. D? Oh, there she is. Come on up. Please come on up to accept the proclamation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have the distinct privilege and honor of presenting this proclamation, knowing how important mentoring is, that we all need mentors. And I want to thank all the mentors for stepping up to the plate. And I only hope that this proclamation has the same response as Rusty had in finding a new home. Maybe we can find a few more mentors. Maybe they're right here in this room. Caring adults that want to agitate young minds. Thank you. The proclamation is as follows: designating January 18, 2011 as Indian River County Mentoring Day. Whereas all across the Treasure Coast, mentors help steer our youth through supporting during these challenging times on their journey into adulthood. And whereas during the month of January, we honor caring individuals who support and encourage youth's potential and nurture their talent. And whereas the dedication of mentors has helped countless young men and women succeed when they might have otherwise fallen short of their full potential. Mentors can provide a steady presence and share their valuable knowledge, skills, and experiences. Whereas mentors can also support the lessons that parents and teachers would teach by encouraging students to complete their schoolwork and set goals by instilling values of commitment, persistence, and perseverance. From coaches to community leaders, tutors to trusted friends, mentors are essential in today's youth to develop future leaders. And whereas we know the difference that a responsible, caring adult can make in a young person's life, statistics show that effective mentoring programs have resulted in better school attendance, positive student attitudes, and a reduced likelihood of initiation of drug and alcohol use. And whereas the Children's Home Society of Florida has supported 5,379 individual volunteers in 2009 and 2010, and has provided resources to expand mentoring opportunities and training our mentors to help build healthy families and communities and provide our youth with strong role models. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County that the day of January 18, 2011 is Mentoring Day in Indian River County, and the Board encourages the citizens of Indian River County to reach out and mentor young people in our community. Adopted this 18th day of January 2011, signed by all 5 county commissioners.
Thank you.
Dee?
I am Dee Benjamin with Children's Home Society of Florida, and I have with me our board chair for Children's Home Society, Marta Snyder, who will say a few words on our behalf.
I really want to thank you for this honor. Mentoring is key to helping our youth achieve a successful life, and all it takes is one. If one person connects with one youth, it can make an enormous difference in their lives. So I want to thank you for proclaiming the 18th Mentoring Day in Indian River County. I'm going out to lunch with 2 of our girls from Baines Hall. If anybody wants to join me today, we'll probably be at Panera's or someplace. Anyway, but I love all of the children that we help, and I only want the best for them, and I know that Indian River County is the same way. So thank you very much.
Well, while we're up here, how can people step forward and contact you to ensure that we have enough mentors to go around to all the students in Indian River County?
Well, do you know that there's a website and a phone number?
Yes, we have a website, www.chsfl.org is our website, and we also have a volunteer coordinator by the name of Sharon Lear, and she could be reached at 772-344-4020.
And I'm around, so anybody can call me. Yes, they know me. And, you know, we have so many opportunities. One of my pet projects is our summer tutoring program, which is supported by Quail Valley Charities. And this week, Quail Valley is, it's their week of fundraising. And if anybody wants to go shopping along Ocean Drive on Wednesday evening, a portion of the sales goes to Quail Valley, which will help many children's charities in the counties and in the city. So there, you know, last night I was there, and it's such a great opportunity to help a lot of youth. But you can always call me for Children's Home Society.
Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And just along those same lines, Mr. Chairman, from Quail Valley Charities it's an ongoing event. They have the golf tournament, they have the tennis. I even understand they have a pretty good auctioneer coming Saturday night. So,
Anybody we know?
Maybe.
Can't imagine
You may be going.
But it's going to be a good time for you to buy a ticket for the event. It really is a good time.
Yeah.
They raise nearly it's better than $250,000 annually.
They're helping 24 charities this year, so it's a great cause. Lots of good causes.
Fun time.
So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mark, you want to come up and get your proclamation?
Yes, we do. Thank you very much.
Turn around and get a picture. Thank you for everything. Thank you. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you.
Next up, we have a presentation by the Senior Resource Association and Metropolitan Planning Organization on transit service in Indian River County. For that presentation, we have Karen Deagle, the President and CEO of the Senior Resource Association, and our own Phil Mattson, our MPO Staff Director. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Karen Deagle. I'm the CEO of the Senior Resource Association, and thank you for allowing myself and Phil Mattson to present an update on the status of the public transit system here in Indian River County. Transit has had a very busy year this year. During 2010. We completed our system-wide restructuring, which included more routes and destinations for our riders. The three highlights of this restructure include a new route in Sebastian covering Main Street, a new route from Indian River Mall out to the Outlet Mall, and even crossing over our county line to Fort Pierce in Indian River State College's main campus, which I lovingly call the graduate route. We also have a new route on Indian River Boulevard. Our system was recognized statewide from the Florida Public Transit Association with 3 marketing awards for the rebranding and bus wraps, the advertising program, and the maps. And Phil Mattson received the award for the Official Planning Agency of the Year presented by the Commission of Transportation, Disadvantage of Florida Department of Transportation. As you're all aware, the shelter program has come to full fruition, which has been a long-standing priority in our transit development program. We had a ribbon cutting in our first shelter location at Park 24, and we currently have 8 shelters installed throughout the county. We're working hard with the architect and engineer who have finished the design phase of our new administrative and maintenance facility, anticipated being completed at the year-end 2011. This facility is 100% funded with federal stimulus funds, grants. The administrative building is 5,000 square feet with a separate building with 2 maintenance bays. The facility is located next to the Supervisor of Elections office on 43rd Avenue. The design is to withstand hurricane-force winds, allow secured bus parking, and will be the first county building that is Florida Green Building certified. Schulke Biddle and Stoddard is the local engineering firm that was selected for this project. And I would also like to recognize Lynn Williams, the county facility manager, who's our lead contact for this project. He's doing a wonderful job with all the details and moving this project along as quickly as possible. And I'm pleased to present the rendering of the new facility. GO Line is experiencing strong system-wide ridership. In the last 3 years, the GO Line trips have increased over 50%, and in the last 5 years, we have seen a 150% increase. This increase continues to grow. We are on track and anticipate hitting the 1 million trip count this year.
Click button. Left. I once heard at a lecture some years ago that effectiveness was doing the right things and efficiency is defined as doing things right. And this next slide shows that really we're covering both here. The fact that our ridership has grown shows that we're very effective in reaching out to the people who need transit service and capturing a lot of riders. Karen mentioned 900,000, 75,000 demand response riders as well. One of the successes in the system was getting people off the very costly door-to-door service and getting them on the fixed routes. Gives them more options. They don't have to worry about a reservation. And we've been able to wean some of our riders off these $16 a trip services to the $2.04 bus trip on the fixed route system. Both of those figures, by the way, are below statewide averages. The $2.04 is substantially below the statewide average. And that includes partial funding through federal and state grants and our local match as well. So we leverage our local matches very successfully here. If you go ahead and look at the next slide, this is how we stack up according to the official Florida FDOT Transit Handbook, which just came out about a month ago, against all the other systems in the state. The 2 in red include Gainesville and Indian River County, and we're in a dead heat for the low-cost provider in the state on fixed routes per passenger trip. If you look at the next slide, we put some distance on Gainesville in terms of fixed route per mile. Gainesville has to operate those big, heavy city buses because they got so many, masses of students who attend classes and so forth. Our largest bus is 31 feet. They tend to be a little more fuel efficient than the buses in the big city fleets. Go ahead and, one thing as a transportation planner in the context of overall mobility, we like to think about how transit provides congestion relief and does so in a manner that is efficient and also avoids accidents and avoids the emissions of pollutants. Those 900,000 fixed route riders that we have, when surveyed, indicate that they would all either drive or would try to bum a ride from someone, would carpool, would take a taxi ride, would still make a single occupant vehicle trip without the bus system. And that translates into 1 to 2% of all traffic on some of the major corridors in the county. So I don't think that should be ignored. I think in the context of overall transportation, the bus system is providing a part of the solution. On select corridors, we're seeing almost 7% of all trips that are being carried by the transit mode. And that's a real dent on those corridors. And the next image is what we'd look like without the bus system. And here we see basically the equivalent number of cars that bus would be carrying if the bus didn't exist. And our next slide here is a little bit of a ridership profile that I'll get into. First of all, it's good to get an idea of who we are here in the county and what our services might be strategically looking forward. A very large percentage of this county, and I'm always surprised when I see this slide, is what's considered by the state Category 1 potentially transportation disadvantaged. And this includes all persons over 60, regardless of disability status, 59 and younger who are disabled, or non-disabled low-income persons. And when you take those three groups together, here in the county, we've got 48% of our total population. So almost 1 out of 2 people potentially need some assistance. Now, certainly it's misleading in that there's a lot of people over 60 who are fully able to drive and get themselves around, but, you know, you are at a larger and increased risk at this point for entering the fully TD disabled category at that age. Okay, let's take a look at the ridership profile of our GO Line system buses as well. We see that the typical rider, the ridership is predominantly female. It is predominantly low income, and these are either people using assistance of some sort or on Social Security. Where they're going, typically life-sustaining type activities, fewer are going on social activities, more are going shopping, work, doctor, dentist. As you can see, we have a younger ridership profile coming up, so a lot of them now are going to school and work. Go ahead, I think that's on the next slide. The traditional emphasis on the seniors is still there. I mean, 30% of the riders in the slide are over 50, 8% are over 65, but there is a large number of young people on the bus. Here's where we stack up on a 1 to 5 basis in terms of how satisfied our ridership and clients are with the system, and this is something very encouraging to us. We're just about on a 5 on things like courtesy, overall satisfaction, bus driver's ability to drive the bus. The things that we didn't stack up on, we're addressing. I mean, that includes providing more service on weekends rather, providing service to areas we don't serve, and as you heard from Karen, we're hitting those places now. No bus shelters was one of the #1 complaints. Okay, moving ahead. On-time responsiveness, very good, better than the airlines. And system restructuring was completed last year. We'll take a look at what some of the impacts are on a sort of an inter-county equity basis. Our planning process works as follows. We identify the needs for transit service. Those of you on the MPO, which is all of you, know this code by now. The P in the MPO stands for planning. It could also stand for prioritization. I guess it could also stand for Phil lately, but prioritization involves the process of taking a look at what we should be spending our money on to get the most bang for the buck. Also strategically, how to position ourselves should another grant come along, that we're ready to spend this money when it does come up. And moving ahead on our planning process into what we're actually doing. Karen, if you can go ahead. We found out that 2 transfers were required to go from the North County to the mall or the hospital, and that was unacceptable in the North County area. We didn't serve Sebastian City Hall. We didn't serve the Vero Outlet malls, which we'd heard from them on how they'd like to see some service. No inter-campus connection to Fort Pierce. No beachside service north of Sexton Plaza. A lot of deficiencies we identified. One of them was our old bus shelter program, if you all remember it. And we did then impact these major system route changes. We added a new route on Indian River Boulevard South, which picks up Kyle's Run and the other apartment complexes there. We greatly simplified the Sebastian route. We broke it into 2 routes and gave the riders up there more options. Sebastian's been very cooperative, and Fellsmere in giving us $50,000 in local operating assistance per year for some of the service change. Other minor route changes were made. Moving ahead, we've gotten a large increase in ridership. And on the breakdown equity side, you can see that the North County routes prior to 2007 or so almost captured very few of the overall system riders. You know, only I think that it reached a high of about 8% in 2007, and it's much higher now, and that trend continues. This is an interesting map that shows us where by bandwidth where the core of ridership is here in the county, and you can see while it's spread throughout the county at this point, by the thick lines you see there on State Road 60, near the Outlet Mall, near downtown, near Gifford, the core is still in the central part of the county. Okay, and that pretty much concludes where we've been this year. And I want to personally thank you for your support of the transit system. I think it's an important mode, and Karen's going to give you a brief overview of where we're going.
I'm going to take the goal line.
Yeah. Which road we're going to take?
As you're all aware, we're currently working with the City of Vero Beach staff and county staff to identify a permanent hub site for the Vero Beach Transit Hub. Currently, the hub is located here at the parking area across from the County Administration Building. We're looking at for a site that will minimize neighborhood impact and maximize intermodal opportunities. With those thoughts in mind, we also have to be aware of the route constraints when moving a hub transfer location. Our routes are based on half-hour headways, meeting at the hub every hour, allowing riders to transfer. If you move the hub either direction too far, the routes will not meet and the system will break. I call this the elastic band theory.
Looks like Phil's been working on this presentation.
Can you tell? So if you move the hub too far, the route system must be restructured, and some of the route service at either end must be restructured or lost. We've investigated several locations for this hub. Operational constraints, we had to take a look at operational constraints, neighborhood impacts, the cost, the available infrastructure, and intermodal opportunities. Some sites were disqualified due to the restraints just discussed. The site that is currently under consideration is the city parking lot just east of Judson's Appliances. And as you can see, we did go through a number of different locations in consideration, and there's comments as to why it would and would not work. This site, as proposed, is in the downtown area. You can see it's within a mixed-use and commercial area. The flow of traffic within the twin pairs makes it for easy access for the site for our buses, and it's near the FEC Railroad for intermodal purposes. A few other transit projects for 2011 include the completion of an additional 12 shelters, bringing the total to 20 shelters in the community. This project has been a wonderful community project, with all the municipalities agreeing to participate with the trash removal from the receptacles of the shelters within their jurisdiction. I believe today you're being asked to approve the same for the unincorporated areas, which in all would total 5 shelters after we finish putting up the last 12. SRA has purchased new software called Route Match that will allow more efficient and effective scheduling of door-to-door services, allowing us to increase the number of trips by a minimum of 25% with minimal cost increase. We are also reviewing the possibility of expanded hours on holiday and weekends on routes that currently do not offer the service. Of course, with the increased fuel cost, service expansion cannot happen without resumption of the Florida Department of Discretionary Funding. Phil Mattson and Brian Freeman do an excellent job finding funding where it's possible through the grant writing, and which we can utilize to better improve our services. I continue to seek local partnerships for the 25% match that is required, and am pleased to recognize both the City of Sebastian and the City of Fellsmere for their contributions to the local match. Most importantly, I'd like to say thank you to all of you, Commissioners, for your support towards this very important program in our community. I'm hopeful that you'll agree that your investment is money wisely spent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I would like to say just a couple things. I'm chairman of the Transportation Disadvantage Committee, and that's helped give me a much better appreciation of our bus system. I think that the ridership that was mentioned of doubling in about 3 years is incredible. And one of the things I noticed driving around, unfortunately I'm still using the car a lot, is that at the bus stops, you see more and more people all the time. And that's, I think, you ought to be commended for that. And also commended for your cost per rider. Again, at $2.04 per rider, less than half the state average, I think that's phenomenal. I think that's a great thing for our county, as is the bus system. And I thank you all for your work to make it as good a system as it is.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just tell you one, Karen, I think we also need to recognize Kinley Horn. They wrote a check for, what, $12,000 to sponsor that bus shelter on Indian River Boulevard?
That's correct.
And we would certainly encourage other businesses or entities to also sponsor shelters going forward. And the second point is the economic benefit of the Go Line system. And I've said before, but the liveaboards, the sailboaters and the marine folks that come to the Vero Beach Marina just rant and rave about how great the Go Line service is. And this is really a jumping off point for them. They really prefer this anchorage, and when they're heading south for the winter to the Bahamas and such, this is where they stock up and get their provisions. So the fact they can have the Go Line pick them up right there at the marina, it can take them to Lowe's and Home Depot and Walmart, and anywhere they go to stock up, and that generates a lot of revenue for the city and the county. So there's a big economic benefit with the Go Line as well as the transit service. So again, congratulations to y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And thank you, Phil and Karen.
Thanks.
Next up, we have a public announcement for the Vero Beach Electronics Recycling event on January 22nd, and this announcement will be given by Himanshu Mehta. And he's brought a guest with him.
Good morning, Commissioners. Himanshu Mehta, Solid Waste Disposal District. Pleased to introduce you to Vicki Wild. She's the new Executive Director for Keep Indian River Beautiful. And it's our pleasure to be here today to announce the upcoming Vero Beach Electronics event. It's taking place this Saturday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Indian River Mall. Again, we encourage residents to come out and bring all their unwanted electronics and help keep those items out of the landfill. Again, a partnership with Curb, the mall, and our vendor AERC. One of the other things we're doing this year is, and this is through the mall, they're having a company come out to allow residents to bring their documents, any sort of documents that they want to shred. There'll be on-site shredding going on as well. So it's something new and different we're trying to bring to the event. Just turn it over to Vicki to introduce herself and tell you a little bit more about the event.
Hi, I'm Vicki Wild. I'm the new Executive Director of Keep Indian River Beautiful, Curb. We have a store in the Indian River Mall, which we use as a reuse exchange center. And we're proud to be a part of this electronics recycling event. SW is also giving away a refurbished computer at the event. We have a raffle ticket, so people can buy that and hopefully win a computer. I've gotten a hold of the Vero Beach High School. I have about 4 to 8 volunteers that have already said that they would come in, and we also have 3 of our board members, our president, our secretary, and treasurer all said that they would be at the event. So I would like to welcome all of you to come out and meet our board and enjoy the event.
Vicki, can you give the times of the event again?
Yes, it's from 9 to 3 in the Sears park, in between Macy's and Sears, in the parking lot right there at the mall, Saturday.
I dropped off some stuff the last time. It was incredibly well organized. I mean, you didn't even have to get out of your car. They made it as easy as possible for anybody who came, and it's a great way if you have stuff in your closet that's electronic and it's been sitting there and your wife's telling you to get rid of it, this is the time to get rid of it. Also, Vicki, the operating hours for your office at the Indian River Mall?
We are Tuesday through Thursday from, Tuesday through Thursday from 1 to 5, and then on Friday 2 to 6, and then on Saturday 11 to 3.
And the types of things you have at the store that people might be interested in?
Oh, yes, we have a lot of stuff, and I'm trying to get it out to our teachers, too, so that they're aware of all the stuff we have in case they need supplies for their classrooms and stuff. We have all kinds of beads, we have binders, we have board games, we have calendars, we have materials, we have like paper towel rolls, we have pins, pencils, all kinds of stuff. We have everybody comes in, they bring in like their old egg cartons, bring them into our store. They can make craft projects or whatever you want out of it, and we try and reuse the items.
All the stuff which then stays out of our landfill.
Exactly. I actually have the numbers if you want them.
I always like numbers. While she's looking for that, Himanshu, I know you have a goal for recycling for the county this year, and it is?
We're still shooting for 10,000 tons this year.
Okay, a little short last year, but you're going to make it this year, right?
We're going to make it this year.
Excellent.
I found that we had 35,000 plus pounds of litter that we took out of the landfill and for our exchange center.
Which is great. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to ask Himanshu, is there any limitations on items that can be brought to the event on Saturday? I've had some inquiries. Most certainly people can bring in batteries as well, those large batteries from the battery backups. And
yes, we'll take some of the battery items. Predominantly we're just looking for a lot of the old electronics,
computers, TVs, radios,
exactly,
old telephones.
But certainly if somebody has, especially the backup batteries and things like that, we'll be happy to take those as well.
Very good. Is there anything else that's going to be done on Saturday?
No, we're looking for an exciting day, and it's always been a great turnout, and we appreciate the support for the community.
We're working on goodie bags too to hand out.
Himanshu and Vicki, thank you very much, and good luck Saturday.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of November 9th, 2010. We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Flesher, a second from Commissioner O'Brien. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Move on to the consent agenda. As mentioned, 8M was added by the county administrator, and I'd like to pull that just so he could explain what it is. And while I'm talking, I'll mention that I'd like to pull H for a little explanation and also L. Anybody else like to pull anything?
Move approval as
we have a motion to approve consent agenda as amended from Commissioner Davis, a second from Commissioner Flesher. I'll go to 8M, the county administrator.
Vote on that first.
No, I always forget that vote. All in favor, say aye. 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 Passes 5-0. Mr. County Administrator Baird.
Yes, what we're doing here today is that we're changing the surplus list that you approved on December 21st. What's occurring here is traffic engineering. One of the items that they have is that traffic engineering, it wants to take one of the vehicles that's surplus and utilize it, and they want to give up a vehicle. The vehicle that they have presently has a challenging time at pulling the thermal marking device that we use on the roads, and it's a half-ton, and they would like to take this 3/4 ton pickup and utilize it. So what we're doing is removing the 3/4 ton from the surplus list and adding the half-ton pickup. The other item is that Senior Resources is in need of an older truck to help them with their operations in the community transportation program, and this is they just need an older truck. So we took one of the older trucks on the list, and under state law we can give it to nonprofit, or in this case it's also nonprofit, but some that we would buy anyway if we were at least buy a portion of it because it's part of the transportation program. It saves us money. That's it in the summary. All we're doing is changing the list that's going to auction. Now this auction will occur on Wednesday, January 26th at the landfill at 10 o'clock.
Thank you very much. Any questions of Mr. Baird?
Move staff recommendation.
We have a motion from Commissioner Davis. Second from Commissioner Flesher. All in favor? Aye. Passes 5-0. Next we have item H, which is approval of renewal for a Class E1 Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity for Consulate Health Care to provide wheelchair services. And I just pulled this for, actually there are two reasons. One is, it seemed like the applicant just failed to file an application. But on the one hand, looking at the timeline from our county staff went out of their way, and I would just want everybody to understand our county staff went out of the way to try to get these people to fill out an application, and it seems Brian, that you almost had to beg him to go ahead and fill it out.
Yeah, good morning. Brian Burkeen, Assistant Chief Fire Rescue. It's a Class E1 Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity for Consulate Health Care. It's a 149-bed skilled nursing facility off of 37th Street, and they operate a wheelchair van to transport their residents, clients, back and forth to dialysis centers and medical appointments, things of that nature. They originally got their first COPC in just 2 years ago, in 2008, 2.5 years ago, in 2008. And it was under a current or a former administrator at that time. Since then, it's changed administration. They kind of lost track of what was going on and what they needed to do. We went through our normal process. We sent them out a letter over 90 days in advance. And we heard nothing back, so we sent them back another one and another one. And I made a presentation. And then finally got the application filled out. It was not complete, and we had to go through numerous steps to finally get it complete. But in essence, the COPCN is 6 months expired. We're just asking to go ahead and renew it. It's created no harm, no endangerment to the public, and without the COPCN, it would become probably a hardship on the residents of that facility itself.
Well, Brian, I'd like to just thank you for the efforts that you made to get them to fill out their application.
Yeah,
and I hope they appreciate it.
It's just every day.
That said, Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Davis, a second from Commissioner Fleischer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0, and thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you.
Next is item 8L, and 8L simply says that the county is going to pay for the maintenance of the shelters. But I just had a question for the county administrator. There's no mention of the cost of maintenance here.
Yeah.
I have no objection to the maintenance. I just have objections to voting for things, the cost of which I don't know.
Yeah, let me say that we're just paying for the maintenance of the shelters in the county. The other cities are paying for the maintenance of the shelters within their city. In this case, we're talking about having parks or road and bridge drive-by, and as they're going on their normal routes, just check the garbage can and empty it, do weed whacking around it, and minor maintenance. We think the cost is nominal. We think it's less than $1,000 a year. It's a hard thing to cost out totally because we're running by that location anyway. All they do is stop and empty the garbage can.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Just on the side, the crew that does that, my wife frequents the park, Winbrook Park, and the bathrooms are just spectacular as far as clean. And that, I'm sure it's that crew, and kudos to them doing that. And I think this is common sense to get them to stop and empty the garbage cans as they go by.
No, that's fine. I just think we need to recognize whenever we do something that does increase the cost, and in this case, it increases the amount that we're asking these men to do. So I appreciate their efforts, but I just hate to vote on something where the idea of the cost of the object isn't even addressed at all. Yeah. So with that, Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
Move approval.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Davis, a second from Commissioner Wheeler. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you. That's it for the consent agenda. And we'll move to constitutional officers and governmental agencies. First up is Leslie Swan, if she's here. I don't see her. This is for some budget works. You're not Leslie.
No.
Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Tricia Verdugo. I'm the accountant for the elections office, and she had jury duty today, so she apologizes for not being here. We were asking if we could have the municipal revenue rolled back into our budget. It's in the amount of $13,578.
So moved.
We have a motion from Commissioner Davis. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Fleischer. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the Sheriff of Indian River County, Darrell Law, with a budget amendment.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's that time of year again when we request that the funds from the latest auction are returned back to the Sheriff's Office. I believe it's $33,250. And one bright note about this, we were able to take 16 automobiles off of our insurance roll, so to speak, in an effort to continue to reduce our expenses.
Approval.
Second.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Wheeler, second from Commissioner Davis. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any against? Passes 5-0.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Sheriff. Under public items, we have a public hearing which was continued from our January 11th, 2011 meeting. Point West of Vero Beach Limited's request to modify the approval of a plan development conceptual plan for the Point West school site. Good morning. It looks like we have Stan and Bob Keating to make a presentation.
Thank you,
Good morning,
Mr.
gentlemen.
Chairman. For the record, I'm Stan Bowling, County Planning Director. The request that's before you all this morning is from the developer of Point West to modify their conceptual plan development plan for the school site, known as Tract M, with the development. It is a change to the conceptual plan, which has gone through staff review. The Planning and Zoning Commission has also reviewed the recommendation, and it's before you all this morning for final action. As you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, this item was continued from last Tuesday's board meeting. The overall PD plan for Point West was approved almost 12 years ago, and there have been 3 changes to date with the conceptual plan. There are a number of different uses in the development, besides residential, also some commercial and office, a golf course, and the elementary school site. And it is a traditional neighborhood design with a mixture of uses and a lot of local streets and good block structure. A lot of the project has been constructed. Streets, common areas, residential, and the medical office have been constructed. The project is located in the crosshatched area south of State Road 60, both west and east of 74th Avenue. And you can see from State Road 60 in this particular image, Point West Drive coming down from State Road 60 into the future town center area, and immediately to the east in red is the subject elementary school site, and the only change proposed would affect a portion of this site. From the aerial you can see, again, State Road 60 here at the top and Point West Drive coming down to the south, the future town center blocks and the subject site outlined in red. Immediately to the east of the school site is Westlake Estates single-family subdivision. And back in 1999, when this site was set up as a school site, there's kind of a, for compatibility reasons, kind of a placeholder condition put on the conceptual PD plan for a 200-foot building setback to give lots of buffering between Westlake Estates and the future school site. Of course, back in 1999, the school district did not have any specific site plan or layout for the school site. But they do now, and as a result of that, working with school board staff and the developer for the past few months, I've looked at designs, and the developer has agreed and has applied for the change in the PD condition to go from a 200-foot building setback to a 50-foot wide buffer. And there is a difference between the two. This is showing the 15-acre school site, and to the east here is Westlake Estates. The existing 200-foot building setback in the conceptual plan would push all the buildings toward town center to the west here, but a lot of high-traffic parking areas and other types of facilities could go within that building setback. The proposal is for a 50-foot buffer, which would be completely green and would allow some of the buildings to come closer to the east and some of the high-traffic areas and also the chiller plant to go closer toward town center. It would actually be more compatible with Westlake Estates. And that's the gist of the proposal, to allow what is essentially a better design. I wanted to show on this particular aerial, it shows quite well, the developer years ago planted trees, oak trees, along the east boundary, so there's a mature tree buffer which will be completely preserved with the 50-foot buffer that is proposed. Also wanted to mention, in coordinating with school board staff and the developer went to the Westlake Estates residents and the Property Owners Association residents and went over this proposal with them, and we do have support of the residents. At the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, we did have a resident come to the public hearing. We have his contact information, and he and other interested parties will be invited to the Technical Review Committee meeting when staff receives the site plan, so that residents will be able to take a look and give input on the site plan itself. Just in summary, the existing 200-foot setback constrains a better school layout that locates major traffic and parking areas away from Westlake Estates, and the proposed 50-foot buffer allows a preferred layout. It's preferred by county staff, Westlake Estates residents, and school district staff. The Planning and Zoning Commission at a public hearing made a motion, and that is recommending that you all approve this change, and staff also recommends that the board approve this change. And I'd be glad to try to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, and I'd just like to clarify one thing. The proposed 50-foot buffer, from what you said, no vehicles will be allowed within that buffer?
That's correct. There'll be no hard improvements. It'll be completely green.
Thanks. Any other questions of staff?
Mr. Chairman, one. Stan, the PD requires that if the school district does not build a school on that site, it'll remain as green space. Would the 50-foot buffer still be in effect then, or would it revert back to the 200?
No, it would still be in effect. The 50-foot buffer would be in effect whether this is used as a school site or as a park site.
Okay, so if they don't ever do the school site then, and they do Polo again, they would be up to the 50-foot?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff?
Yeah, just one. As I understood, the 200-foot beyond the 50 feet, or would you have 200 or 150 feet left out of that? You know, what I thought I heard you say is they could park in that 200 feet, but not build a building in that 200 feet.
No, they do need to be able to place buildings closer than 200 feet to that east property line. They would actually be able to have some building area go up to that 50-foot buffer line.
I misunderstood. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just real quick, I was on the school board whenever we accepted the piece of property, and of course we wanted a middle school at the time, but the developer wanted a elementary school. Now my question is, after they build this will meet that requirement. How long do they have? It was a 10-year period, if I'm not mistaken, about that they had to build a school in that 10-year time frame. Is that correct?
Yeah, my recollection is they have till 2015 to build.
And I'm assuming that will it be a building permit that would go ahead and finalize, or would it be the CO?
Right. We'll be looking for commencement of construction. They'll be going through the Department of Education permitting process, not the local building permitting process, but we'll look for commencement of construction.
All right. And so the elementary site being 10 acres, I don't know that they're going to use the entire 10 acres. What does it mean to the rest of the property that may not actually have a school facility on it?
Well, the actual site is approximately 15 acres, and the usual standard for the school district is 20 acres. And they went with less in this case because stormwater is being accommodated off-site. So they don't have to use any of the site for stormwater. But I think their plans are to use the entire 15 acres because there will be recreational fields and so forth here. So I think they'll use the entire 15 acres.
Okay, that's all.
This is a public hearing, so I'll now open this up to the public and ask if there's anybody who wishes to speak on this matter. Come on up, and if you would, give your name and address for the record, please.
Bob Johnson, Carlwyn Subdivision. It seems to me that when this PD was approved, that the developer turned this land over to the school district. It seems like now we're arbitrarily, or maybe not arbitrarily, but now taking land that's owned by the school district out from under them. So I'm not sure if that's a valid comment or not, but it seems like I didn't hear the school district approving this new buffer zone. I don't have any objection to the buffer. I think it's a great idea, but it's not clear that that the county commission owns this land anymore. When they approved it, it seemed like to me they gave it to the school district. So I'd just like to hear a clarification on it.
The county commission never owned the land, but we'll ask for a clarification from Mr. Bowling.
Right. The school district owns the land, but has some conditions on that ownership. And in fact, they are very much in favor of this application request because it gives them more flexibility. It gives them more rights in terms of where they can place buildings, in return for placing some other facilities further away from Westlake Estates. So this has been coordinated with all the parties, the county, the school district staff, and with the developer, as well as the residents. So I think this is something that the school district definitely wants.
It would be my understanding that if we grant the ability to have the 50-foot buffer, that doesn't mandate to the school district that they have to build it within 50 feet. They can still build it 200 feet out if they want to.
That's correct, and it's the building is not that they're going to build is probably not one big block structure. There's going to be parts of it that are going to be closer than others, so there's more flexibility for the school district. Bottom line.
Yeah, so basically, this gives flexibility. It doesn't take anything away from the school district.
Exactly.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Steve Malcori, 1999 Point West Drive. Just to clarify, the school district does not own the property yet. It's still owned by Point West and the Property Owners Association. But once this gets resolved, we anticipate deeding it to the school district relatively quickly. But right now, it's not owned by the school district.
Thank you very much. Anybody else from the public? There being none, we will close the public hearing. Any other questions or discussion from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move staff recommendations.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner O'Brien, a second from Commissioner Davis. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Passes 5-0. We now move to public discussion items. There's a request to speak from Joe Wiggins regarding the sidewalk on 11th Street Southwest.
Mr. Chairman, I don't see Mr. Wiggins here. I can briefly summarize the board. About 2 years ago, I think we paved 11th Street Southwest, and as a result of that paving, the road has seen some increased traffic, and as well as the traffic speeding down the road. The issue we have to the south of 11th Street is a canal, and so there's no right-of-way. And this is a fairly narrow road to begin with. And on the north side are residential lots where we do not have any right-of-way acquired to put a sidewalk in. So we've kind of been going back with Mr. Wiggins back and forth. He says that the property owners are willing to give us the right-of-way. Kind of when we ask for those letters or dedications, we're not getting it. So it's kind of going back and forth. And I don't know, and Chris is familiar with it. We've been working with Mr. Wiggins on this for a while. And I'm just not sure how much further we can go until we get some of that right away. So,
thank you. Since Chris has made his way up to the podium, I'll just ask if he wants to add anything.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Chris Moore, Public Works Director. I just wanted to show a little aerial of the area in question where Mr. Wiggins is requesting the sidewalk. It's along the north side of 11th Street Southwest. Oslo Road is up here at the top, and over here in the bottom left would be the area where it's formerly Thompson Elementary, now it's Adult Education Center. But he has requested the sidewalk there. We've done some preliminary drawings back when we were first looking at this issue and Mr. Wiggins had brought it forward. It would actually tie into an area where Grace Woods subdivision has built a portion of the sidewalk here, and if I back up, this is where Grace Woods is, so we would have to put in a sidewalk just to the west of it and then also east all the way towards where Mr. Wiggins resides. This is the area of Grace Woods looking east. And this is the reason, like Commissioner O'Brien mentioned, why we would not want to put it on the south side. You can see there's utilities, culverts, a lot of driveways on the south side, so we'd want to stay away from the south side. Right now, this project is not a funded project. It's not designed. It's not in our 5-year capital improvement program, so we're not moving forward with it. But if opportunities came up to purchase right away and make it go forward inexpensively, we would probably pursue them. It's just that we haven't had that opportunity yet.
Chris, is there any traffic slowing things we can do in the meantime, like some stop signs? And I know it still becomes an enforcement issue, but maybe a couple stop signs along that length might get people slowing down a little bit and help address Mr. Wiggins' concerns.
We can look at some traffic calming issues. We usually don't put in stop signs along a stretch. It's about a mile stretch. We usually don't put in stop signs just to slow people down, but we can look at some other traffic calming measures, maybe lower the speed limit, things like that.
Well, again, and then that becomes the speed limit thing becomes an enforcement issue. That I think people are more likely to stop for a stop sign than they are going to drive slower. And I think a lot of that traffic is just using it as a shortcut bypass. And I think if we put a few stop signs in there and make it inconvenient for them, they'll probably go on up to Oslo, which is where they should be anyway if it's just through traffic. So, I'd like to at least look at putting a couple stop signs there to make it inconvenient for the through traffic.
Yeah, we could take it maybe one mid-block location like was done on 16th Street between 43rd and 58th as a possibility.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of Chris?
No, versus, and I understand what you're saying, Commissioner, but versus a 60 stop sign, for the lack of a better term, I guess, I would like to see what we could do about putting this in into our long-term program, or try to next year try to see about the right-of-way or something. Go ahead and make the road safe versus making it inconvenient. And if we need to look at what priorities or what roads might be affected by us making that decision, that's the avenue that I think we ought to go versus putting a stop sign in there.
Okay, any other questions of Chris? Chris, thank you very much. Next up, we have a request to speak from Fran Menzing regarding a resolution to avoid a lawsuit. Mr. Menzing, name and address for the record, please.
Fred Menzing, 7580 129th Street. Basically, I'm going to make this very brief. I'm going to give each of you a copy of the paperwork. You have until February the 1st to come up with some form of a response that I consider suitable. If we do not get such a response by then, there will be a lawsuit filed directly against the 5 commissioners. There will be 4 additional lawsuits of people under your staff and control for their involvement. The suits will be in the United States District Court, Southern District of Florida, for jury trial, and we will be demanding an amount not to exceed $10 million.
Thank you. Just so you know that once somebody threatens me with a lawsuit, I become very reticent and I pass it on to the attorney, so that's what I'll be doing. So just so you're not waiting for a response from me.
Oh, I understand. I wouldn't expect a response to that.
Yes.
Thanks, babe.
Thank you, Fred.
I will not give any of this to the press. Any questions you have revealed, and I will give them answers. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Menzing, just so you know, the fact you have delivered this to us in a public meeting, this is public information at this point.
Okay, well, as I said, I will get, if the press questions me, I will talk to them. Otherwise, I'm not going to talk to them.
That's fine.
And some of you think I would assassinate you. I wouldn't give you the pleasure. I don't like needles. I don't like Mr. Lure's hotel. I would prefer to see you squirm in court. Thank you.
May as well tell the press, too. If the press asks me about it, I'll refer it to the attorney, because at this point now I consider this to be a possible lawsuit. That's it for items from the public. We'll move on now to departmental matters, community development, a request to amend the Neighborhood Stabilization Program Community Development Block Grant Housing Assistance Plan, and request to amend the procurement policies and procedures for the county's community development block grants. Mr. Keating, good luck with this one, because this is a little bit confusing.
I'm sorry about that. I'm Bob Keating. I'm County Community Development Director. This item actually involves proposed changes to 2 documents. One is the Neighborhood Stabilization Program Housing Assistance Plan, and the other is the Community Development Block Grant Procurement Policies and Procedures. Now, both of these documents are related. In fact, the Community Development Block Grant Procurement Policies and Procedures apply to the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, because the Neighborhood Stabilization Program is a part of the Community Development Block Grant Program. I think this is why Commissioner Solari said this is a complicated item. But both the revised HAP, which is the Housing Assistance Plan, and the revised procurement policies are included in your backup. And in those documents, the changes are shown in a strike-through underline format. And the HAP begins on page 110 of your backup, and the procurement procedures begin at page 129. I want to first say that all these proposed changes to the HAP relate only to the houses that have been purchased by the Housing Authority for resale. They don't involve any of the houses purchased by the Homeless Services Council for rental. So, because I know we have brought some changes to the HAP to you before that involve the rental houses, and these don't do that. Now, overall, the Housing Assistance Plan really provides a blueprint for managing the Neighborhood Stabilization Program. And now that we're at the resale process for the 16 homes that the Housing Authority has purchased, and we've actually identified the price that we'll be selling the houses at, and we've got some applicants in where we've done income verification, and they've gotten letters of commitment from financial institutions for a principal mortgage to buy these houses. Now that we've gone through some of that and we've gotten some experience, we've identified some changes that we need to make to the housing assistance plan. And essentially we're proposing 5 changes to the housing assistance plan, and those are on page 107 of your backup, and they're actually in bullet form. And for the HAP, we're recommending to increase the down payment assistance from 6% of the purchase price to 10% of the purchase price. And the reason for that is we underestimated the percentage of the purchase price that would be attributable to closing costs. What we're finding is there are some fixed price closing cost items, and it's for particularly lower priced homes, it's making the closing cost amount exceed 6%. And the intent all along is that the NSP funds would cover all of the closing costs. So we're proposing to change that from 6% to 10%. We're also recommending to increase the gap financing from 30% of the purchase price to 35%. And looking at some of the applicants, this gives us a little more flexibility and allows a couple more applicants to potentially to qualify for the program. And I do want to say both the closing cost assistance and the gap financing, those amounts will be incorporated within a second mortgage, which will be a deferred payment second mortgage that's subordinated to the principal mortgage that a financial institution will give to the applicants to buy these houses. So this is not a giveaway program. The loan is forgivable after 15 years, consistent with community development block grant allowances, but these amounts will be a loan that will be payable if the house is sold or anything else happens in the first 15 years of occupancy by the applicant. And now, going on, we're also recommending to allow staff to use real estate brokers to sell the NSP houses. This was kind of surprising to us. This is an excellent opportunity for qualifying households to buy a house, but despite the marketing efforts of the Housing Authority, we just haven't attracted enough buyers for all 16 homes. So what we're proposing, really 2 options to have real estate agents help us market and sell the houses. One would be just offering a 3% commission if any real estate broker brings a qualifying client to us and that client does close on the property. And alternatively, if that doesn't work, we're proposing that we be allowed to actually list the property with a broker so it gets on the multiple listing service and offer 3% commission to both the listing and the selling brokers. As I said, we're finding that the marketing efforts that the Housing Authority is doing and that we're helping with as county staff isn't attracting enough buyers for all 16 houses. This provides a little more flexibility, and this is consistent with what some of the other jurisdictions in the state are doing as far as the neighborhood stabilization program. And the final change that we're recommending to the HAP is to replace an incorrect reference to the second mortgage, and that reference indicates in one place in the HAP that the second mortgage is for an unlimited term, and in another place it indicates that it's for a 15-year term, and in both places it should be for a 15-year term. So we're proposing to make those changes. So those are the changes to the housing assistance plan. I assume it's still a little complicated and maybe not as clear as I would like, but those are the HAP changes. Let me briefly, I think the changes to the procurement policies and procedures are really a lot cleaner, a lot easier. Essentially, the community development block grant procurement policies and procedures that we have were developed close to 20 years ago when we got a community development block grant. Those haven't been updated or modified for the past 15 years, and they're completely out of date. And what we have is we have a lot less flexibility in making purchases because of that. We are proposing several changes. Most are pretty minor, but the major change that we're proposing in these procedures is to change the procedures so that they generally conform to the county's purchasing procedures. And there's a table on page 134 that I think, of your backup, that I think pretty succinctly shows the changes that we're making. And really consistent with the county's purchasing procedures, there are 3 types of procurement. There's simple procurement, intermediate procurement, and formal procurement. And currently, the dollar levels we have for those are real low because they haven't been changed in more than 15 years. And what we're proposing is for purchase of goods or services less than $5,000, would have to get oral quotes or price checks for those. For purchases in the intermediate procurement category between $5,000 and $25,000 would have to get written quotes. And for those in the formal procurement category, which are over $25,000, would have to go through the full bid process. And I can tell you what brought this to a head. With one of the houses that the Housing Authority purchased, we had to replace an air conditioning unit that was stolen from the house. And this was a $3,000 to $4,000 expenditure, and we had to go through the formal bid procedure, which took a number of weeks. We had to write up bid documents. We had to put it on Demand Star. We had to go through that whole process. If these had been in place, we still would have looked at getting the best price. We would have required getting 3 written quotes, but it would have been a lot simpler and a lot easier to do. So those are the major changes to the procurement policies and procedures. So at this point, staff's recommendation is that the board approve the changes to the HAP and authorize the chairman to sign the revised HAP document, and also approve the changes to the CDBG procurement policies and procedures and authorize the chairman to sign those. And if you've got any questions about this complicated, confusing set of changes, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Bob, I'd just like to see if I can recap this and correct me where I'm wrong.
Sure.
I mean, this was basically a federal program which gave money to help stabilize neighborhoods that had a lot of foreclosures in them. Because we're a small county, it went through the state.
Yes.
And the state, I just want the audience to appreciate this, set up a program but regularly changed the rules. Yes. So it's not as if the county set up a program which we're now trying to change. We are more, based on what Bob said, having an experience with it now, are trying to change some of the rules in a public fashion to make sure that this program works. So now we are trying to make sure that we end up buying the allotted number of houses under the program before a certain time, which is coming up soon, right?
Yes, September of this year.
So we have until September of this year to spend the money, and if the money isn't spent on the proper type of houses, the money will go back, I guess, to the state and then maybe to the federal government. So if that's more or less, I just wanted the public to understand some of the background for it, because it is complex, and you're right to wonder why would we would be changing some portions of this in the middle of a program, but I think this is right. We've got about 5 more minutes here, and then we're going to break, but I'll begin with Commissioner Fletcher.
Move staff recommendation.
I'll second that.
We have
a quick question.
Yeah, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Fletcher, a second from Commissioner Davis. Any questions?
One thing that concerns me, I mean, I understand that we've got to market these houses and make it work from that standpoint, but I don't know how we're going to be as fair as we possibly can. I almost would think that Like you mentioned, Bob, the best way to go, maybe just offer a 3% brokerage for somebody to bring a buyer. Unfortunately, that may not work as well because we don't have it properly advertised in the MLS and some of these other things that realtors have the opportunity to take advantage of. I almost wonder, for the amount of money that could be saved in the process, that we've had people on staff that have a real estate license, and maybe it would be cheaper for us to have an individual in our office become a broker for a period of time, pay the dues, put it in there, so that way now we have it listed and we have the effective marketing tool of the multiple listing service. I'm just throwing that out for consideration.
Mr. Chairman, that was my concern, how we would select the one realtor to list this, and there might be a dozen. I'm not sure I like your idea because I could see a lot of conflict if we pick somebody in-house. I thought maybe more, Bob, could not the Realtors Association, just as an association, they become the listing agent, that would get it in the MLS listing, they would collect the 3%, and that would go to services that they do for all the realtors, and maybe that's the fairest way to do it and still get it on the MLS.
I'll tell you what, perhaps during the break, I guess we'll have this decided, but we don't have to hammer this issue totally out. I'll call my liaison to the Realtors Association and find out, see if we can do something like that. Well, I think we all have one.
Okay, would you like to postpone this vote until after the break, or go ahead with it now?
I think if you could approve that, I think we have the flexibility to do that under what you're approving today. Yes.
Okay, well, Commissioner Fletcher, will you incorporate the gist of Commissioner Davis's motion? Thank you, and you're good with the second?
I am.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Passes 5-0. We are now going to move to a shade session with our attorney, and I have to read a paragraph prior to our leaving the dais.
Mr. Chairman, this meeting was noticed to start at 10:30. We're talking about the shade meeting?
Yes.
And I would suggest that we wait until 10:30.
He wants to actually wait until 10:30 here?
Yes, because we have to open the session here in public.
At 10:30. That's fine. I hate to
keep on moving.
Break up. My guess is that the next item is going to take some time, but it's a county item, so go ahead, Mr. Zito.
Did you want to take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back at 10:30 and then do the
Start it?
That's a fine idea. We'll take a break right now. We're going to come back at 10:30. I'm going to read a paragraph, and then we're going to move upstairs for the shade meeting. Then we'll come back probably around 11 o'clock. Thank you. We are now commencing a closed attorney-client session pursuant to Section 286.011, parentheses 8, Florida statutes. The session will relate to the settlement negotiations and pending litigation, namely City First Mortgage Corporation versus Indian River County, pending in Florida 4th District Court of Appeals, case number 4D10-4799. Our attorney has advised the board at a public meeting that he desires advice concerning this litigation. The estimated length of the meeting is 30 minutes. The names of the persons who will be attending the session are Commissioners Bob Solari, Gary Wheeler, Peter O'Brien, Wesley Davis, and Joseph Flesher, County Administrator Joe Baird, County Attorney Alan Polakwich, and Certified Court Reporter Gregory Campbell. We'll now go upstairs. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman? Okay. Just want a clarification.
We have concluded the closed attorney-client session and are now terminating the closed session. The public meeting is now reopened. We move to departmental matters, general services, discussion regarding requests for commemorative works to be displayed at county parks and facilities. I believe we have Mr. Zito for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Michael Zito, Assistant County Administrator. This item is brought under general services and can be found at page 148 in your backup. The item is brought forward to generate a discussion as to how to process various requests to display commemorative works at county parks, buildings, and grounds. These requests most often come in the form of plaques, signage, or plantings. The agenda item raises some issues that may facilitate discussion, and to that end I have enclosed 3 sample policies which reflect a wide range of approaches, including the City of Vero Beach tree planting program and policies from Brevard and Palm Beach counties. The threshold question is, do we want to establish specific criteria in the form of a policy or perhaps a resolution or ordinance? If so, then how to go about processing various requests for commemorative works to be procured, installed, and maintained. The city's program starts with an application to Public Works and requires approval of a tree and beautification commission that with all costs borne by the applicant. The costs include the actual cost of the tree and installation, along with the optional cost of a plaque at the planting site. Brevard's policy leaves discretion to the department, but requires a plaque or marker to designate the history related to that particular facility. It also limits recognition to individuals or groups who have made a significant contribution by donation or effort to that particular facility. The Palm Beach policy simply requires that the request be sponsored by a commissioner. So due to the wide range of approaches on this subject, staff has not brought forth a specific policy before you today, but would generally note that if we endeavor to adopt a policy, resolution, or ordinance, that it be cost neutral and require a strong connection to the facility or area where the commemorative work is proposed to be displayed. And if perhaps an individual or group is otherwise worthy of recognition, a proclamation may be the more appropriate way to acknowledge our most valuable citizens who have made a significant general civic contribution to the people of Indian River County. And with that, I'd ask the chairman to open the discussion, and I can answer any questions you may have.
We'll do that. Anybody have any questions? Oh, you look like you're about to...
Comments, I guess.
Comments, then.
Turn your mic on.
Just one initial comment. I don't know whether we need a policy or not. I think it's something we could kick around, and I haven't determined my position on that at this point until we have more conversation. But if we do have a policy, one thing that I would feel strongly about is that no elected official that is getting paid to do a particular job get additional recognition for the job he did while in the service of the people and drawing a salary. I think that people that are worthy of these things are people like Elma Lee Loy, for instance, who has dedicated her life to many community projects that had nothing to do with her being a commissioner or serving in that capacity. Or Deputy Ruskowski, who was killed in the line of duty as a deputy, things of that nature. But I did disagree, and nothing personal, with Route 60 area being designated for Representative Mayfield, because he was getting paid to do what he did. And when I see bridges, Merle Barber Bridge, etc., these are people who go to Tallahassee or Washington, take the taxpayers' money, come back home and spend it, and then get a plaque for doing a great job. I just disagree with that concept. I think people that should be recognized for doing what they do free and willingly, and not being a part of the government and using public money to do what they want and having the ability to vote that money to do what they want so they can get recognition.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yeah, I think we do need something, because this initiative had come up that I handled for a while, and it's kind of spilled over to the chairman now. And
thank you for that.
You're quite welcome. I knew it'd be in your capable hands. But I like the concept that the Vero Beach tree policy is. I don't think we need a tree commission to review it. I think it could be done through community development or public works. But I like the idea of having something when somebody does come in, we can say, yes, here's our policy. You fill out the application, you pay $20 to process it, you buy the tree, you pay to put it in, you pay for the plaque, you can put it on a county park if you want, and we have an approved tree list, and it's a done deal, and then that resolves it. I'd go along with what, Commissioner Wheeler said. Any elected official shouldn't be eligible. This should be for members of the public.
Well, except the way you just said it, members of the public officials should be able to do it.
No, elected officials should not. It should only be for citizens,
should not be able to put them in.
To be recognized.
They should not be recognized, correct.
Well, the City of Vero Beach's program, and I'm familiar with it because I dedicated a tree with my wife, as a matter of fact, 2 of them. The way you're saying it, it seems like that would prevent me from going and paying the cost of a tree.
Oh, no. The plaque could not be for you.
So if I want to pay for my own plaque to
commemorate something you did as an elected official, no.
Okay, that strikes me as peculiar, but
I'll buy yours, you buy mine.
I'll continue with Commissioner Fletcher.
No, I agree all that was said there, and I don't believe that we should have the element of self-gratification in the form while we are in office. That's a brilliant point to bring out. I do believe that we need some sort of basic policy. There are people that do want things commemorated, would like to be able to donate, would like to be able to pay for those, whether it's a park bench or a tree. And I believe that there might be a great room for this, especially during these challenging economic times, where people do want to step up to the plate and do something to commemorate a loved one or a significant event in their life. And I think it can open up the door for a great partnership for the community as well.
Commissioner Davis?
What specifically have we been approached with?
This particular item was generated by a request from the sister of a deceased organ donor who was widely recognized locally as making a significant contribution to saving the lives of others, and was featured in a 32963 article. And she had proposed to First Commissioner O'Brien that we commemorate and celebrate that effort with a plaque at Round Island Park, because that, in essence, was a reminder to her family that, well, it was her favorite park, her favorite place to go to the beach. And it gave staff some hesitation, because although we want to recognize and celebrate that effort, we could not draw a connection to the park itself, and we're concerned that if the criteria isn't established, or at least sponsored by a commissioner who convinces 2 other commissioners that it's a worthy dedication, that we could get several requests and really have very little control over the impact going forward.
Okay, then what I would like to see with this is for it to be something that belongs in a park. I'm not saying that a plaque doesn't, but a bench would. Perhaps a tree.
A fountain.
Yeah, but I don't want it to turn into a memorial gardens with fountains. But an amenity would be an appropriate, could be appropriate. And so I don't know that I'd like to go the plaque way, but the benches they have by the Heritage Center are nice. And so it's almost like if they would come, if we could get some kind of a parameter of, okay, what would we like to see in the park? When I say we, as I'm not this Board of County Commissioners, what would the community like to see in the park? And I know they'd like to have it something that's relatively permanent, but then really maybe a tree is as long-lasting as you get, as soon as a hurricane doesn't come through or something. But if it's something to enhance, I would be a little bit more in favor of some kind of policy on it.
I'd like to speak if I could. I mean, basically, I'm with Peter on the Vero Beach tree policy, and perhaps that's because I was a council member at the city of Vero Beach, and my wife and I put in 2 trees. You do get a plaque with it. There's a small plaque that's pretty, not not very obnoxious, and it doesn't stand out too much. But it provides 2 or 3 good, useful purposes. One is the people who put in the tree get the benefit of seeing it and thinking about the person they commemorated, in which case for me was my father-in-law, which I'm not too big on, but Jackie's big on the fact that it was her father. The other very conciliatory of you.
Yeah, but I know. Would you repeat that just in case you missed it?
Tell Jackie's not watching this.
No, I'm not going to say it twice. That is Jackie. That is one of the benefits of not having a television.
Bill in the morning.
The second thing is it's good for the community. I mean, if you look at, we have one of ours in Riverside Park, and Riverside Park has a lot of mature trees, but it really needed younger trees, and a number of new trees have been put in by people who dedicated them. So it serves a public purpose in that, and it is a living memorial. And it's also simple. When you get into benches or fountains or anything else, then you have to really get more specific about, is it really necessary for the park, how many benches, how many other things. So I think that the easiest, cleanest thing is something like the City of Vero Beach tree policy, which I'd be all in favor of, especially since the cost is borne by the person who wants to make the dedication. Commissioner Wheeler.
Yeah, and that's where I wanted to separate out what I said. You know, when we take public funds and put a public plaque up for a politician that's being paid to do the job of the people, I disagree with. And you take it from a little thing to some senator bringing home $500 million to build a bridge or something. I just disagree with that because they've got the ability to appropriate the funds. But when you get into things amenities that are good for the community, whether it be trees or park benches, or if you're going to put in someplace a paver thing where they put the names on. You know, I don't care if every politician out there buys 40 of them and puts them in the park, because it benefits the community, and he's got the same. I don't think you give up your rights by the same token because you're elected. I just have a problem with government recognizing their own representatives for doing something with the public money.
Mr. Davis.
Yeah, no, that's right on point. I understand exactly where you're coming from, and I think that if we do this properly, I could see, for example, not necessarily additional structures, but let's suppose that it was time to do something at Hobart Park, and you've got those pavilions up there. I'll give a good example is you have the Barker family up there that has their family reunion at the big pavilion the Sunday after Mother's Day every year. And then right over there at the smaller one, the Davis family has theirs. And, you know, maybe one of these days the Barker family wants to get together and build the new pavilion with whatever, and let them do the Barker family's pavilion.
Like the library with the brackets.
Yeah, and with that, at the same park, Riverside Park, the City of Vero Beach has gazebos dedicated by the Downings.
Yeah.
That seems to be more of a special project, which I think the board probably ought to address on a case-by-case basis. But I think what...
it's still naming a structure or putting something...
but I mean, I think that if someone wants to come up with $20,000 to put up a structure in the county, I think the sitting board is capable of saying, yeah, this is a good public purpose, and if you want to put your name on it, that's good value for the taxpayers' dollars.
And in that instance, the plaque could be appropriate.
But I'd like to keep this right now, if we could, simple for the staff, and to come up with something which more taxpayers are likely to want to engage in, which we ought to have a good set of consistent rules for.
I know that you had said that if staff did have a recommendation, it would be the same. I know that someone said we didn't have a recommendation, but if we did, it would probably be the same one the City of Vero Beach has on their tree. It seems to work that very well, and we think we think that policy would work for us.
And what the city has, does that also encompass the benches with the commemorative plaques, as well as what they do in Sebastian along the riverfront with the commemorization of the beach, of the benches along the beachfront?
One of the problems we'd be
a very
concerned.
small plaque.
One of the concerns about benches and things is they may want us to put in benches that we're, not ready to put in our locations. That's, trees are easier, I think. And you could, it's up to this board. But we're just trying to make it simple.
And that's what I was just kind of envisioning. You wouldn't want to go up to Hobart Park and then make it look like a gazebo-ville. I mean, there's somewhere you'd have to draw the line.
If there's a need.
Yeah. I mean, or if it fits, or if it's an improvement. And I know that staff, I'm sure y'all are after a policy that really doesn't have much discretion. It's a box like this, and if it fits inside that box, then it moves forward.
Well, it also helps the commissioners, because typically if we should deny a request, then it's just going to go upstairs and...
Then it becomes political, and I don't,
I would be happy if staff had a wish list of things, that they listed those with a specific item and place, and say, well, these would be available for the public to dedicate if they want to.
That's similar to what the Humane Society does, or what churches do, or any organization.
So it wouldn't be somebody coming up and saying, okay, I want to put a bench there. It would be rather somebody coming in and saying, the county in their plan needs benches here, here, and here. We'd like to donate the one at location B, something like that.
We definitely need bus shelters.
Yeah, that'd be
there you go.
That type of place. And also, probably it'd be helpful if the county had a list of general areas of where they might want to put the trees.
So I wouldn't have a problem with, for instance, one we just had, Kimberly Horn. That paid for that bus shelter. I got no problem with the plaque on the back of that bus shelter saying they paid for it.
That's correct.
You know, it's I think that it's a two-way street. My only problem is elected people appropriating public funds,
right,
so they can get recognition, and you know,
especially around election time.
When we take the Oslo boat ramp and rename it the Wesley S. Davis boat ramp, are you going to be okay with that?
I'm looking at you.
Well, he'll just take the boat out, he won't come back.
I'll ask Mr. Zito if he feels he has enough direction from the commission to go forward.
I do. I believe we can do something that kind of mirrors the tree planting program with the city, but also allows for identification of specific areas where we may need benches or structures, that we would leave specific naming rights or name dedications or plaques on facilities to individual case-by-case presentation to the board, and bring you back something that you can review.
And now would be a good time, if the public out there is hearing any of this, if you had any suggestions, to give Mr. Zito a call and see if it's something that he can put into a comprehensive policy.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think we need a vote on that.
No, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zito.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Utility Services is up next. Consulting services with Post, Buckley, Shoe, and Jernigan for environmental testing at the West Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant. It looks like Mr. Olson is working his way up.
Move staff recommendation.
We have a motion for staff recommendation from Commissioner Davis, a second from Commissioner Wheeler. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Passes 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Good job, Mr. Olson. We've done item 13A, and now we move to 13B, Attorneys' Matters, Historical Practices Relating to Granting of Waste Hauling Franchises. Mr. Polakowicz.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. This is perhaps informational, but back in November, the Rigby's from Capital Sanitation made a presentation concerning waste hauling franchises in this county. And out of that presentation, the board directed my office to look into two questions. Those two questions are outlined in the memo. The first question was whether or not our code and our special act that govern franchises require an application for the issuance, extension, or renewal of a waste hauling franchise. If so, have we done that? And if we haven't done it, what's the consequence? And I'll pause for a second and focus on that question. As I outlined in my memo, the answer to the question is yes, the code and the special act do require an application for those actions with respect to the franchises. In fact, both the statute and the code use the word shall. There shall be an application. When I went looking through the old records to find applications, I could not find applications. It's unclear what that means with respect to the old franchises, because the franchises we currently have trace their roots back, one to 1961 and the other to 1975, and our inability to find applications from 1961 or 1975 may mean that there were no applications, but it may also mean that there were applications which have been discarded in the past 50 years or 35 years. So we were unclear what exactly happened back in those days, but more recently, talking with SWID staff, it did become apparent that we have not required an application of Waste Management and Republic, who hold the two current franchises. So that led to the question of, well, what's the impact of that fact? As I outlined in my memo, I really don't think the impact is that the franchises that we currently have are therefore invalid. And to me, that was really the ultimate question that we had to address here. And I explained why not. There is, Florida law takes that word shall and looks at it in a couple of senses. Sometimes it does mean shall, and if you don't do it, then you suffer the consequence. But other times the word shall is really intended more of a process thing, a procedural thing, a convenience thing, something along those lines. And I really stepped back and looked at the larger question of, if this board or this county were to take the position that the franchises that we have are invalid because there was not an application at the beginning of the process, could we win that position in court? And I really don't think we could. The ultimate reason being because we could not trace anything material to the lack of the application. In other words, if we were in a situation where an application called for certain information, we did not receive that information, but if we had received it, we would never have granted the applications. It would have disqualified these people from the franchises. If that were the situation where it is material, then I think we'd be in a better position to say yes, therefore the franchises may be subject to challenge. But we're not aware of anything like that. We have a long history with these two franchisees. We have received all the information we've ever asked for from these people. So ultimately I concluded that while there was not an application filed, that did not invalidate the existing franchises. Second question dealt with the fact that starting in about the 1990s, our waste hauling franchises started to additionally provide for the collection of recyclable materials, and we actually pay the waste haulers to do that. So did that piece of our franchise, because we're paying for that service, is that a piece that is subject to competitive selection? Should we be bidding that? And as I recited in my memo, there is a statute pretty much right on point. That statute is Florida Statute 403.706, which I think has a built-in assumption that if you have exclusive franchises for waste hauling, then the best people out there to do your collection of recyclable materials are those exclusive franchisees. So therefore the statute says in the development and implementation of your recycling program, you can negotiate with that waste hauler to reach a deal, and nothing in the statutes actually require that piece of the franchise to be competitively bid. So I answered that question in the negative, that no, there is nothing that requires that piece of our franchise to be competitively bid. And as I pointed out at the end of my memo, both of my answers are based on very just strict analysis of the law. There are policy questions here which come up. Clearly we should be requiring applications in the future. Now that a spotlight has been shown on that issue, I'm sure that we will do that in the future. And secondly, should we bid, go out to some type of competitive selection process when the current franchises end in 2015? That's certainly up to the board to decide, but you may seriously consider it. As I did my background work on this, I did find that other counties, some other counties seem to be going through the same type of evolutionary process that we did, where people have had these franchises. They have not historically gone out to bid, but recently decided that it was a good idea to do so. So we may set that thinking in motion for the future. But you asked me to look into those two questions, so I looked into them and came back with those two answers.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Davis.
Just so I can get my mind around this, how many other franchises other than solid waste do we have that we may need to be worried about this?
Well, Jason just completed something. We have electric, we have water and sewer, we have, Jason, help me out. We used to have cable franchise, but that has ended.
Yeah, I think Alan hit on all of them. For the record, Jason Brown, County Budget Director. We currently have franchise agreements for electric, water, sewer, and the garbage collection. At one time, we had franchises for cable. That changed with the tax, with the communication simplification. Act, which I think happened in 2003 and was a misnomer, but basically we no longer have those franchises that's covered under a communications tax, and the state now has regulatory authority for cable franchises. But basically, besides the garbage collection, we have electric, water, and sewer.
Mr. Chairman. And I'm assuming the electric, water, or excuse me, the water and sewer franchises is with the city of Sebastian?
Vero Beach?
We have a franchise agreement where, with the city of Vero, where they pay a fee in lieu of franchise fee of 6% for water and sewer services.
Okay.
Also, in county code, we have the same franchise that's charged to our own county utility.
Okay.
We have an interlocal agreement with the city of Sebastian where there's a 6% fee in lieu of franchise fee, basically.
That we pay to them?
That is paid, that we receive. The city of Sebastian has a 10% utility tax that's levied on the water and sewer provided within the city.
Okay.
We have franchises with FP&L and the city of Vero Beach on the electric side.
Okay, yeah. Those were easy for me to follow, but I forgot about the waters. Okay.
But the ones with FP&L and the city of Vero Beach, especially FP&L, is to some extent out of our hands, right? Because it goes to the Public Service Commission?
Yeah, the Public Service Commission defines the territories that those to the city and the FP&L provide service to. And so they kind of govern.
Really, we're looking at one. We're one franchise.
This is the only one that we have, which the county deals with a private sector individuals or companies to provide services to county residents.
That's what I thought. I mean, FP&L is private, but it's a different animal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner Whitley.
Yeah, interesting. I hadn't looked at it like this before, and I understand, when we're doing a franchise, for instance, with the landfill, we're hiring them, I guess, are we not? Or a franchise, we're allowing service areas with the franchises for Republic Services and Waste Management. And we're giving them a franchise with a service area. But when you get into the 6% that we collect from water, sewer, FP&L, City of in our right-of-way, are those franchises, do they specifically limit that right-of-way for one electric company? I mean, let's assume that the Public Utilities Commission said, well, we're going to allow a third electric company, hypothetically. Could we allow that if we wanted to? I mean, does a franchise give them exclusive right to run electric lines in our rights of way, or could we expand that if we wanted to? I'm comparing it with the garbage collection.
Our agreement with FPL is a non-exclusive franchise for the provision of electric services within the unincorporated area of the county. So it's not an exclusive. Only FPL can be here.
For Waste Management, and they're exclusive, are they not?
They are exclusive within their territory.
Yes. So that's the difference between the two franchise. I mean, they're two different avenues.
Gentlemen, I know there's some people from the public who want to speak, and we're going to be breaking at 12 o'clock, so if we can, I'd like to open it up to the public to come on up in case they have to view someone this afternoon. Okay, anybody from the public want to speak on this item? Name and address for the record, please.
Bob Johnson, Corwin Subdivision. It seemed like this issue came up with Grove law offices or something like that when Grove development was being developed. What they requiring
the roll-off containers. The size of the roll-off containers for construction is dictated by the franchise agreement.
Yes. But I thought there was one when this Grove development between St. Lucie County, they were wanting to provide their own utility out in.
I remember that.
I thought that was
I think there was one on water. There was one on water with a Grove owner that wanted to turn it into possible selling the water and having water holding areas.
And that's coming, Bob.
Anybody else from the public? Name and address for the record, please.
Mark Rigby, 8465 59th Avenue.
Peter Rigby, 8465 59th Avenue.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and County Commissioners. I'm here before you today to discuss the county's attorney letter dated January 12, 2011, which is in response to the question raised at the November 2010 County Commissioners meeting regarding the historical practices relating to the granting of waste hauling franchises. But before I begin to move on, I would like for my brother to read one parable here, please.
It's a quote from Alan Dorchwood, by which we, I guess, carry out our business. It says, in order to understand what really happens in a case, you must independently investigate the political, economic, religious, racial, and other forces that give rise to the case and controversy.
Thank you.
And Alan Dershowitz,
yes,
just for the record, yeah, Alan Dershowitz.
So cool. Now I can move on. After a careful review of the information contained in the reference response, we found the county clearly violated Chapter 59-1380 of the laws of Florida and County Ordinance 2003-014. Chapter 59-1380 was only defined for Indian River County. If you go back and do your research, it's the only county out of the 67 counties in the state of Florida. Indian River County is the only county that has Chapter 59-1380. It was designed. Mr. Vosell made sure that, I think he was up in Tallahassee, he made sure that this law was only defined for Indian River County. When you go look in the law book, you will find that it's only defined for Indian River County for an application for a franchise. It is called a law. The county attorney analysis states the following. There is no evidence or information in the county files to substantiate that the county haulers submitted an application as required in Chapter 59-1380 and County Ordinance 200-014. We recognize that Chapter 59-1380 of the laws of Florida established the provision for the application file process for the granting of a franchise. This has been our argument for the past 7 years. As noted by the county attorney, our research of the county files did not reveal any information or documentation when the application was filed. The county attorney advised this board that Chapter 59-1380 was the basis for granting franchises for the two haulers. Its Chapter 59-1380 was the basis as well as the policy used to establish franchises. The county failed to follow its own policy, therefore making the current franchise agreement voidable. Further, the county ordinance 2003-014 also requires a submission of an application. As the commission can clearly see, this information was clearly available to the county attorney, and there is no justifiable reason that the county failed to follow the proper procedure. What has been submitted to you now in the county attorney's response letter was presented to this board as early as 2002. When you advised that the current process did not follow established procedures, Chapter 59-1380 and County Ordinance 2003-014. Because we have brought this matter to Commission's attention on a continuous basis, it appears that the county used every avenue to prove that we were wrong. Today, I stand before you with the county-owned policies, which clearly demonstrates that the county has violated franchise application procedures. And again, I said in my November that, hey, selected harassment, discriminatory process, and again, you violated my civil rights. Since the county could not reveal any records that the application was completed and submitted, the county is now saying that it is possible the application was not submitted, possible that the application was miscarded or discarded. It is very embarrassing that a county of this size cannot maintain adequate records or information to document actions that have been taken in the use of taxpayers' dollars. In all of my years of dealing with governmental contract or municipalities, an application, RFP, ITB have always been the basis for bid submittal. Now to suggest that an application process is immaterial defeats the whole intent of the county ordinance and the law. Laws and county ordinance are established to create a fair and equitable process to ensure all businesses, citizens, and etc. can have a fair opportunity to compete for governmental contracts. The action taken by the county in this process is a prime example of monopoly at its best. We are appalled by these voter franchise agreements that extended for these many years. To take this one step further, when the enterprise zone became available for franchise application, Capital Sanitation Inc. was required to submit an application. We submitted the application and responded to the questions requested from staff. At that point, the basis for our concern was that the first franchise was approved in 1961. The county has no record requiring any hauler to submit an application for a franchise. In addition, when we submitted an application for the enterprise zone, as required in Chapter 59-1380 of the laws of Florida and the County Ordinance 2003-014, there was no provision in each document about granting of a franchise based on point system. The county staff decision to evaluate our application on a point system when there was no provision requiring a point system review was not appropriate. It appears that the county staff went to great length to disqualify Capital Sanitation Inc. application for the enterprise zone. We failed to see how Capital Sanitation Inc. did not qualify for the enterprise zone. We followed Chapter 59-1380 to the letter and the county ordinance. Capital Sanitation should be working and not waiting for a void franchise agreement to expire in 2015. We have suffered enough financially, and our company has lost revenue for the past 7 years. Capital Sanitation Inc. stands to lose an additional $1 million a year should the county won't wait to comply with this ordinance in 2015. The county attorney stated in his responding letter that the application for the franchise from both haulers has either been misplaced or discarded. Based upon the size and the magnitude of the franchise in question, we find this answer to be totally unacceptable. The citizens of Inner River County should expect that the county maintains a sound record-keeping system to document its action. We find it unacceptable for the county to renew a franchise in absence of an approved application process. The taxpayers of this county have a right to know how valuable documents of this importance cannot be found. As you know, Capital Sanitation brought this matter to your attention on many occasions. Each time these issues were ignored by the commission and the county administrator. The previous county attorney incorrectly advised the commission, knowing that Chapter 59-1380 and County Ordinance 2003-014 had not been followed. It is time for the county to abide by and comply with the franchise application process. The next issue in response to the county attorney's letter, we realize that Florida Stat 403.706, that is an implementation and development stage set forth on the Florida Stat concerning the recycled material collection. However, when you remove the recycled material from the implementation and development stage, it is no longer under the guidelines of Section 403.706 of the Florida Stat. It is now under the exclusive franchise agreement. There is no provision in the franchise agreement that states the county can independently negotiate the recycled material. In the last 20 years, the county has negotiated the recyclable and curbside pickup as one franchise using taxpayers' dollars without utilizing the competitive bid process. Now, in 2011, the county attorney wants to use a different set of rules to apply his opinion on recyclable materials. The county attorney fails to explain to this commission that the county is now under an exclusive franchise agreement, which means curbside and recycled pickup becomes an exclusive franchise agreement, meaning that you can't go in that contract and just pull out what you want to pull out. It's exclusive. And no longer does the recycler falls under Section 403.706 of the Florida Stat. Secondly, there's no provision providing exclusive franchise agreement that says the county will not bid out the recycled material since the recycled material is no longer under Section 403.706. The county should always be transparent in its action. The citizens of River County should know and have a voice as to where their tax dollars are being spent. In conclusion, we do not agree with the county attorney analysis with respect to Chapter 59, 1380. As I said before, Chapter 59, 1380 is the only chapter that is designed or defined for Indian River County. Indian River County is the only county that has Chapter 59, 1380, which is law. County Ordinance 2003.014 and the competitive selection issue with respect to recycled materials collection, we ask that this commission do the right thing by requiring the county to abide by the franchise application process and County Ordinance 2003-014. Let's put money back in Indian River County by awarding capital sanitation the enterprise zone. My parents have lived here for 67 blissful years in this county. My brother has proudly served this country in the United States Marine Corps. Still can't get no work. On the eve of the Martin Luther King birthday, we're asking this commission to do the right thing. Thank you for your attention and your consideration of our request. Do you have any questions?
Thank you very much. Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Pluckett, was there anything said that makes you feel like we've got an improper franchise award?
No, there was nothing new said that changes the opinions that I expressed in my memo and previously.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public wish to speak? Any other discussion amongst the board? There being now, we have a request to stop by noon, so I believe this is a good time to break.
How much more we got to go?
I mean, we think we can finish it?
Yeah.
I think you can.
I didn't want you to be late.
And it's just upstairs, so.
Okay.
Well, we have your thing.
Okay, well, I'll make mine fast then. Basically, wanted to discuss with the board the idea of having a couple meetings up in Sebastian. I'll be talking about no more than 2 meetings during the year. I've talked to the mayor of Sebastian about this. He's very much in favorable of it, and he's waiting for me to say that this board agrees, and he'll check with his administration and get the okay from Sebastian. I'd suggest that we probably do it at the second meeting of a month, maybe March and October. The reason for the second meeting is because we can make it less county-specific, try to draw out the things that we might need staff for, to make our production up in Sebastian as simple as possible, but I believe this gives an easy way for Sebastian residents to come and see us at work. So I just want to discuss with the board and see if there's any support for this.
Sounds fine to me.
I have no problem with it.
That's fine. Just the only concern I have is this goes what you normally ask for.
I was going to say it.
Because you mentioned earlier today that the cost must be identified in anything we do.
And actually,
there's going to be a lot of travel time for staff to drive to Sebastian and back. A lot of times, like Jason can be in his office working and monitoring us on the computer and run down, so I think we'd have to calculate the lost productivity of staff time sitting up there. What I would prefer, and I think it's a good idea to get more exposure in our county. I'm not opposed to that. What I would suggest is, instead of a regular meeting, why don't we pick 2 months, and that last Tuesday where we don't have a regular meeting, we have a special meeting in Sebastian with a very limited agenda, so we don't have to bring all the staff up there. We can listen to the residents in Sebastian. We can make it in the evening if you prefer. But I see a big cost, and we're going to have to run every department head up there in case we have a question on a regular agenda item. I'd rather just say, let's just schedule a special meeting up there twice a year and just put North County issues on that agenda.
That's fine, but that's what I basically anticipated, and that's why I suggested it be the second meeting of the month, so we could squeeze out as many meetings. But if that's the commissioner's favor to do it that way instead, that's fine too.
Versus the last meeting or a specific meeting, I'd just like to explore the idea a little bit. Okay, let's just have a North County, like you're talking about, with just an agenda of North County where you're going to get a crowd there.
The way our meetings have worked out lately, I think we can do one with almost no staff up in Sebastian, aside from the people at this
I
guys.
don't know about that.
But that's interesting.
I mean, if you go back and see what the first meetings have been like this year. So anyway, I'm happy to do it any way we think is the most productive and cost-effective.
Yeah, I think that really Gary, his quote about where the meetings are and the time of day is right on point. Though I think it's really the issue that gets the crowd.
Okay.
But
And it almost sounds like we're designing a special meeting to meet in the North County rather than to have a full-fledged commission meeting. And it's almost, I don't know, I don't care where we meet personally, but I think Peter made some good points, and it is an inconvenience to staff, but I don't care where we meet.
Yeah.
And I'll meet any place, but I think if we're going to do it, we ought to have a meeting. I know in the past we've tried evening meetings, thinking that, and actually they're less attended than the daytime meetings. So, but it's I think the word I'm looking for, but it's trying to tailor-make a meeting for the North County doesn't appeal. If we're going to have a meeting, let's have a meeting.
That's fine. I'm not feeling tremendous warmth for this idea, so, Mr. Menzie. Name and address for the record, please.
Fred Mansing, 7580 129th Street. I'd like to offer a suggestion. If you're going to have a meeting in North County, well publicize it, that the only things that you'll put on the agenda are issues concerning people living Winter Beach North, Wabasso North, so that the people in that area know that this is a chance to come out because you're going to address issues directly in that area that the people might not come down here to deal with, but if they could go to the Sebastian City Hall and address it, they could. I mean, Fellsmere, Roseland, Sebastian, Wabasso, For some people, you know, the trip down here becomes a long trip, where the trip to Sebastian City Hall would be closer if you narrowed the agenda to just issues that really concern those communities.
Thank you.
You know, I follow up on what Mr. Mensing said too. I think at any time that there's an issue that's interesting to the North County or Fellsmere or any place else, that we'd be more than happy to go and make ourselves available.
So why don't we leave it this way then? If an issue is specific to North County that we think is going to be exciting to the citizens comes up, then we'll see if a meeting there is appropriate.
There you go.
And workable.
That's notwithstanding.
Okay, fine. Yeah. I'm certainly happy with that.
Certainly.
I'll move on to Commissioner O'Brien's matters.
Did you want to do Commissioner Davis?
Go ahead. We're all right.
Okay.
It's just right upstairs where I have to go.
Just very quickly, the backup will show that the Beach and Shore Committee voted unanimously that the county send a letter to Congressman Posey, Senators Herodopoulos and Negron, Representatives Mayfield and Popple, just thanking them on behalf of Union County for their efforts and assistance with Sector 3 beach projects. So I'm just requesting permission from the board to go ahead and draft up a letter that'll come back on consent and for the chairman's signature.
So moved. We have a motion from Commissioner Davis, a second from Commissioner Fletcher. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Passes 5-0.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes, on my matter, Mr. Polakowicz had wanted some clarification regarding exactly what we decided with the Dodgertown trade and whether we was going to have any deed restrictions on that property or anything at all. And it was pretty clear in my mind where we had left it, but I think he just wanted some clarification. And Alan, what information do you need to be able to move forward with the deed?
Well, we're preparing the transaction going forward as if the parking property, which we're transferring to the city, remains subject to the golf course, green space, and park restrictions. And I know there was some discussion on that topic at the joint meeting, but at least it was my understanding there was no affirmative decision to remove those restrictions from the parking property. So I wasn't sure. I know Wesley wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, and if y'all remember, I looked across at the city of Vero Beach and asked them point blank, would that break the deal if they got that property with no encumbrances or without any encumbrances on it? And every one of them said no. And the significance of that to me is, I don't know that it'll ever happen, but perhaps another venue to be able to have at Dodgertown, an indoor venue from a gymnastics to a basketball to volleyball tournaments. It's just another opportunity on the piece of property there to be able to do that. It's not currently encumbered. We are using the piece of Vero Beach property that we now own as open parks, green spaces, keeping with the original intent of the same amount of acreage. So I just want to make it clear that that's what I was thinking.
Commissioner Davis, I guess 2 points. One is, and Alan, you can clarify, the deed restriction document really has now boiled down to only 2 interested parties, the city of Vero Beach and Indian River County. And if we transfer the property as is proposed with the deed restriction, if at some point in the future a use, as you mentioned, that will be an amenity of the campus comes along, I think the board would certainly agree to amend the deed restriction at that point in time. I think it's in the best interest of the county to keep the open space restriction on the land to the greatest extent possible, preserve our parking rights on that property. And again, if they come in and say we want to build lacrosse fields there or indoor volleyball, I'm all for that. I'll give up the parking for expansion of the campus. But if we release that restriction, they come forward and say, hey, we're going to put a hot dog stand out there, and now it's an incompatible use with our parking, I don't want to lose it for that. So I think it's in our best interest to keep the most likelihood that we will retain our parking rights, and if something good comes down the pipe, I'll be glad to go ahead and say, yeah, you can have it now. But to keep our parking rights, I think is critical.
Gentlemen, I think we pretty much hammered that out while we were there, and I understand what you're saying.
And I agree the city would love to have it without restrictions.
And I think we ought to give it to them.
I think we gave up enough as it was.
Undoing deed restrictions they're very complicated. That's why they put them on there. And to be able to maximize the use of that facility, I mean, because then the city of Vero Beach has to agree with that. We couldn't just do it. And if we imposed it, we couldn't just undo it. There's another party at play on the other side. It gets nasty. And it's a whole lot cleaner, just in my opinion. And maybe I misread everybody that was there, but I didn't think there was any problem with it at the time. Maybe they thought about it and it is, but I would certainly like to pass that along to them with no deed restrictions to be able to utilize that as more, because after today, or after that trade, we're not going to have any control over it, in my opinion. And I just would encourage us to do so.
Commissioner Fletcher?
Question for council. It's just been raised. How much of a challenge is it to then lift that deed restriction in the future? Should we come up with, or should the City of Vero Beach come up with another use that might complement the whole village concept?
Well, there are two parties on the deed restriction. One is the county and the other is the city.
Right.
So the city and the county agreed to remove the restriction. It gets removed. But let me add something here as well. Frankly, my recommendation is that you not remove it right now. And I say that for a couple of reasons. There are so many moving parts out there to this transaction. That piece of property you're talking about is actually subject to 4 separate agreements, including several amendments of those agreements. And one thing that has come out of this process in our discussions with the city and also our discussions with DT Commons is we need to take a larger look at this property and look at those restrictions as they apply to the city property, as they apply to the parking property, as they apply to DT Commons, and try to come up with something that perhaps is updated and makes more sense. And my feeling is we ought to address that issue, or this issue, at that time. Keep in mind, we're only talking at the moment about the restrictions on the parking property. All the remaining property that the city continues to own would continue to be subject to those restrictions, if I'm understanding what you're saying. So, I think we've all promised each other a comprehensive look at all the documents down the road, but
maybe I misread the group as well. That day, I thought that we were looking at freeing up the license and extending that branch so that perhaps maybe the City of Vero Beach, if they came up with a conceptually sound project for that property, that they would also be able to move forward, and we would probably have far more of a benefit or likelihood of getting the parking facility or parking rights somewhere along those properties, less the DT Commons property. But it's more or less akin to, and I believe the conversation came about when we were talking about the 30 or 33.33%, or whatever that number is finally addressed, but that third of the move for the heart-shaped pond. And I believe that there was some concessions made, and I believe that that would be a positive concession. But if take that under advisement, if you feel that that's not an appropriate move right now, and there might be some legal issues up the road with the other property owners.
Mr. Chairman.
Do you believe that it will make more work in the future?
I don't think it'll make more work in the future. I think that parking property needs to be consistent with the rest of the city property there.
Why is that?
Well, because it is essentially a rectangular parcel. Part of what we were trying to create here was that they would have a single regularly shaped parcel. And all I can tell you is from the beginning, the city staff's negotiations with me always were that they wanted that entire parcel under the same set of restrictions.
And I appreciate that, and that's why I asked the question of every one of the city staffs that was over there. Monty was tickled to death at the end of the meeting. Every one of the city council members said, no, it gives us a whole lot more latitude. And to be able to move, y'all saw how difficult it was just to trade a piece of property between the two. Now you're talking about releasing a deed restriction. And I mean, in my opinion, gentlemen, and I respect our attorneys, I mean, you're a sharp guy. But this to me is the simpler we can hand it to them, which we're already going to give it to them, but the simpler we can have that package, the more flexible and nimble they can be whenever there's something to take place on that property. And we are taking a piece of property that they had, and we are living up to the intent of the restrictions as far as park and open space on that piece of property. So the taxpayers, or the City of Vero Beach residents, whomever it is, the government agencies have held up their end on acre for acre, just about. And this is making it so that in the future, it will clearly be easier to augment sporting venues with the property without any restrictions on it than it will. And I think that we're more concerned about the park and green space than we are about the success of Dodgertown right now.
I think the one thing that Mr. Plackridge was trying to get to is that the land we're receiving is deed restricted, and part of that deal is to remove that deed restriction. DT Commons has to sign off on that because they're a party to the collateral agreement which covered all that. Now, DT Commons owns a commercial parcel that they may want to develop as, let's say, a hotel. Okay? They, as a private industry, had to pay, out of their own pocket. They have to pay taxes on it. If we release the deed restrictions from the parcel we're giving to the city, there's no stopping the city from saying, hey, we're going to give this land to a Holiday Inn as an incentive and let them build a competing hotel, and then DT Commons would say, wait a minute, we had to buy this. And that's why my point was, if they come in with an idea for fields and compatible uses for the campus, I think I'm good with that. I think DT Commons is good with that. But if we release that parcel and let it be, whatever, airport industrial, they could put in competing uses that would compete with DT Commons, and I think that's the point the attorney is trying to get.
Hold on. Commissioner Wheelsman wanted to speak for a while.
I don't even know why we're discussing this.
I thought it was decided.
I'm at a loss. We decided at a meeting last week what to do. This was not a part of it. There was lengthy conversation. In fact, Wesley said, I don't understand why I'm the only one that doesn't get this. When you talk to the city and all that, it didn't come up. It wasn't a part of the motion. We moved forward with this, and I don't know why we're discussing it
I understand it differently at that time. I mean, I understood that we would be speaking about it again, and that if we spoke about it at this meeting, it would be timely to have an impact on all the documents when they were signed.
Oh, I missed that.
So that's how I understood it. So I believe it's appropriate for Commissioner Davis to bring it up today.
No,
But that said,
okay, as
right
long
now,
as you explain why we're discussing it, because otherwise I didn't understand why we're spending time on this at this point.
Did you understand that it was?
If I could, let me just ask the attorney. Again, if there are only two parties after all the other documents are signed, there'll be two parties left, the city and the county, to determine the future of the deed restriction on that parcel of now city-owned land, correct?
Well,
I don't know.
I told you there are a lot of moving parts. We had a meeting last Friday, late afternoon, city and myself and DT Commons and their representatives. They want a right of approval to release restrictions on these properties that the city has.
Let me ask the question differently. Is it difficult then to remove that deed restriction? I mean, we're removing it on the parcel the county is getting, so it can't be that hard to remove.
No, there's not. We are putting one on.
No. There's one on the parcel that the county is getting from the city today.
Is not okay, but is not softball diamonds? Is that not compatible
but
with?
My understanding is that the deed restrictions were being removed from the parcel that the county is getting.
Yes, that is correct. Let me jump in and mention one thing, because something has changed, and Peter just mentioned it a moment ago. I have been telling this commission that to remove the deed restrictions off the piece we're getting, we need 3 signatures: city, county, and DT Commons. What came out of our meeting on Friday is that it appears that DT Commons' signature may not be required to do that. So the city and the county may, in fact, the county itself may control that question of removing the restrictions on its own property. That's where we may be headed right now.
And and just see how difficult that is at this point, in removing one that's already there. And I just can't believe that we're talking about adding one.
But it doesn't seem to be difficult to remove it. Are you having a problem removing the deed restriction from the piece of property the county's getting?
We don't know yet.
No. Assuming what I just said is accurate, and we believe it's accurate, then no, it's a document signed by the county and the deal's done.
Okay. It doesn't seem like it would be difficult in the future then to remove the deed restriction.
Somebody must know something that I don't, and so in looking at this, I'm not sure, and Commissioner O'Brien, I understand, I don't want it to be a hotel, unless that it's going to be a part of the campus of Dodgertown. More rooms. What I really envision is something along the lines of a gymnasium to offer an indoor sports venue. That can't happen if we do that kind of a restriction on this piece of property. And I don't know necessarily that, I just don't know what the future holds for it, but trying to get a whole bunch of people to agree is what's going to have to happen in order for it to be undone. I just believe it's a whole lot easier right now to go ahead and hand it over to them, and let's hope that they have a educated city council in the future to make good decisions with the property. That way they don't have to worry about the education qualities of the county.
Okay, I think we've probably discussed this as much as we're going to today. Chair will entertain a motion on this.
I move we give it to them without any deed restrictions.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Davis. Do we have a second? Dies for lack of a second.
Wow.
Any other items coming before us today? There being none, we are adjourned, gentlemen.